Okay. Um, can you tell us about your profession and what inspired you to follow this particular path in healthcare?
Right. Well, thank you for your question, Isha. My name is Alexa Volpe. I am a pharmacist, and my path into pharmacy was very unexpected, I would say. Um, Initially, I went to school to be an artist, and I did my undergraduate work in painting, and I had this unique opportunity to work abroad and study art restoration. And when I was abroad, I fell in love of just restoring old artwork. And I came back to the US and I said, oh my gosh, this is what I want to do. But to be able to restore art, you have credits in chemistry to be able to apply to masters in the US that train you. And so as I applied for that, I ended up doing a chemistry degree, which I never expected to ever do anything in science. But I did a dual major, a double major in art and in chemistry, and I ended up with actually a bachelor's of science and a bachelor of arts. And when I went to go apply for art restoration school, um, I did, and I was rejected. And I was so upset about that rejection that I just decided that I was going to pivot to something else. And I had an advisor who told me that his wife was a pharmacist. And I was like, what's a pharmacist? And at that point, I started to dig a little deeper into what the profession was. I got a job in pharmacy. At first, I thought pharmacy was where I bought makeup, as a young person. It wasn't anything beyond developing pictures or, buying stuff in the front store. But then when I worked in the pharmacy, I was like, I really like this. I like working with people. I like the fast paced. It was something that kind of got me hooked. And so I applied to pharmacy school from there. And I did a 4-year pharmacy program. And after I did my pharmacy school, I did a year of residency after. And I got into the profession because, like a lot of people who work in healthcare, you are really driven by this desire to help folks. And it felt like this was a place that I could really make a difference with people. And so that's kind of how I got in got into pharmacy unexpectedly. Never imagined that, I would be here today talking to you about it.
That's amazing. You went from like one side of the spectrum to the completely other side, right?
Right. And
What?
and and yes.
Oh, no, no, no. Continue, please.
No, I was going to say, I think it's wonderful that you're in high school and you're thinking about this. And I know in school I said, no way would I ever do anything in science. But it's funny how you sometimes find yourself, doing things that you never expected, and leaving those doors open is important.
Could you point out specific aspects of working as a pharmacist that really pulled you to continue in this profession?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think what people don't realize is that the field of pharmacy is very vast, right? And so, probably the most immediate connection folks have to pharmacy is when they go to their local pharmacies at the supermarket or a large chain or an independent pharmacy, and you go and you pick up your medications and you talk to your pharmacist, or, those interactions are what I think a lot of folks see as pharmacy. But pharmacy has a lot more dimensions to it. You can be a pharmacist that works in what we call an ambulatory clinic and takes care of patients with diabetes, helps them once they've been diagnosed and started on medications. They can help manage their medications, help titrate their medications. There's pharmacists that work in hospitals, the pharmacists that are trained to work in emergency medicine, pharmacists that are trained through residency to work in cardiology practices. There's a lot of different ways, whether it's in the hospital, whether it's in a clinic, whether it's in a supermarket, whether it's in industry. There's pharmacists that work as consultants, pharmacists that work in long-term care facilities, pharmacists that do what I do, which is drug information research. So there's a lot of ways to be a pharmacist. And I think that's been one of the most exciting parts of my training and doing what I do is that I feel like there's so many ways that I can practice my skill set. Um, And so that's one of the exciting parts. And the nice part too is that at all of these levels, you can really contribute to patient care and helping folks and helping others and making sure that providers have access to good information, that patients have access to, their medication and health information. And so it feels very valuable when I practice.
That's amazing. Could you give us like a rundown of your average day working as a pharmacist in drug information research?
Sure. So I have been in my current position for about 2 years now. And my main responsibility in the area that I'm working at for my company is to make sure that when providers prescribe patients, they have they what I do is sort of big tent for the electronic health record. That's what our team does, and we build a lot of different aspects of drug information content for the electronic health record. So when someone goes in and pulls up Eesha's chart, they're prescribing the correct drug. If they have a question about dosing, there's someone like pharmacist like myself who's gone through to make sure that that clinical information is available for the provider. We make sure that there's drug information, drug interaction information available. So when you prescribe, things flag. We really work to make sure that there's a robust amount of clinical information in the electronic health record for providers, and for other clients that may be using this content in other areas. And so my typical day, it starts. I work actually 100% remotely. And the team that I work with is spread all over the world because we support clients in Europe, we support clients in the US, in Canada, and Australia. And we have our team. We have team in India. We have teams all over Europe. And so I work remotely with a lot of different folks from all over the world. And my job is I look at um, uh, clinical studies or clinical information or manufacturer product information. And I read all that and I try to translate it and make it more digestible for somebody who has very little time and needs to make really focused and targeted decisions around drug prescribing. And so I write that content and I make sure that it's accurate, and can be translated into the electronic health record system.
Oh,
I
so
don't know.
you,
Is that a good picture?
yeah, that's a great picture. So you go by like a case by case basis?
Right. So like when a new drug comes to market, imagine that you're a doctor and your work as an oncologist and you want to prescribe a new drug. Well, we make sure that that new drug that was just approved by the FDA for some kind of, for whatever cancer indication that it has, we make sure that you can prescribe that drug properly, that there's drug information on that available for that product. We make sure that if there's significant drug interactions, they're flagged in the system. We make sure if there's health conditions that interact with that drug, that it's flagged in the system. We make sure that that name of the product is tied to all the different available formulations that are out there for the product. um, yeah, that's kind of part of the whole process.
So is it like a never-ending list of drugs being introduced and refined?
Sure, because just as you finish one drug, right? You have new drugs that are come to market. You have drugs that are constantly updated, right? So you have products that get new warnings or black box warnings, or they get a new indication, like maybe it was used, for this disease, but now it's also approved in another one. Or you have old products that are discontinued, or you've got a product in the system that hasn't been updated for 5 years and you have to take care of that. So it's a constantly moving amount of stuff that has to be addressed. We don't run out
Got
of things to do, if that's what you're
it.
asking.
Got it. What do you find is the most challenging aspect of working remotely as a pharmacist, and how do you deal with those challenges?
That's a really good question. I think that I enjoy working remotely as a pharmacist, so there's not a lot of struggle with that. And I have found um, that being able to work with everything is very efficient and effective. Um, I'm trying to think. I can't really think of a really big limitation necessarily to what I'm doing. I know that there's some limitations overall, for pharmacists in terms of the scope of their practice. If I think a little bit bigger, I think one of the biggest challenges of being a pharmacist, one that I'd love to see change in the next years and that we've been hoping would change is being able to recognize pharmacists as providers so that they can bill directly for their services rather than just billing for product. Um, those are some of the things in the profession limitations to the way we practice. But for what I do, I think so far it's been pretty great.
Great. Now we're moving on to the MRC portion of the interview. So, what was your personal motivation for joining the MRC, and how do you involve or will involve with the MRC?
So I'll tell you that I joined at what I thought or think was a very exciting time. I was really propelled to be involved when San Antonio was doing mass vaccination events. And so I participated in many of those mass vaccination events that were happening in San Antonio during the pandemic, where, we'd have, gosh, hundreds, I don't know, thousands of folks that were coming through to be vaccinated with the newly approved vaccines. And so I spent, a good number of events going and supporting the MRC with that. I haven't done as many lately, but I I act as somebody on reserve for if we have catastrophic events or I know that they also have recruit and have volunteers for local festivals and other events, but largely my role has been immunization focused with the organization. I've also done, flu shot clinics or other COVID clinics when they were still doing them. But that's been my major contribution and role with the MRC.
Got it. Before that, do you have any advice for health for high schoolers or anybody else who wants to volunteer for the MRC or get involved somehow?
If there are students interested in a career in healthcare, I would absolutely encourage them to do what you're doing, to get involved with the MRC, to ask questions, to learn as much as they can about healthcare professions. I think having access to these interviews or meeting other folks who work in the field is the best way to understand what's out there so that you guys can understand what you might want to do in the future.
Great, thank you. Now branching back to the specific aspect of pharmacy, how did were you able to time manage and make that life work balance while you were studying pharmacy?
That's a really good question that I don't know has a really great answer. I am a procrastinator, so I'm not sure that I'm the person to ask about the best time management. But I work good under pressure and I get a lot done. And I would just tell, you that the best thing to do is just keep going and you know, do the best that you can. I don't know that there's a really great way to um, have an ideal work-life balance. I had a child in the middle of pharmacy school. I don't recommend that, but life happens and you go with it and um, you just, I don't know, make the best of it. I struggle every day still, with my family, with all of the other things I want to do to be able to have that fulcrum for equilibrium is constantly moving. So we just keep going and you take a breath as you can and you find moments to enjoy as you can. As a student, I always thought to myself, well, this is my future and it's always felt like a really good investment to invest in myself, and that's what kind of kept me going. I knew I wanted to do something, and eventually that something materialized over time. But I would say that for time management and all that. It's something that you learn as you go
Understand.
and you practice.
What?
No, no, no. It's okay.
Oh, okay. Um, Regarding like on the aspect of time management and work-life balance, how are you able to study, or do you have any advice for studying to impart to high schoolers?
Also practice. I don't know that I have anything very specific to say. I spent a lot of years in school. I did high school just like you, and then I did 4 years of undergraduate work in which I crammed two bachelor's degrees in 4 years. So I just didn't sleep a lot, and you just work a lot all the time. And then I did about 2 years of preparing my prerequisite work for pharmacy school. And then I did 4 years of pharmacy school. And then I did 1 year of residency. So it's a lot of years of studying after high school. And through all of that, the thing that I do to keep up with things is I make lists so that I always have present what I have to do. I think that's been one of my best skills is to really strategize and always know what's your priority, what's your next priority, what's the next thing I have to focus on. Because when you're also a procrastinator like me, it's really important to know how to prioritize what's important. And that's also really essential when you become a healthcare provider, right? Because you need to know what's the most important thing I need to do for this patient next, or what's the next most important thing, because you only have so much time, right? And it keeps moving fast. And so I just do a lot of list taking. I was really big into planners, and I just try to stay on top of stuff, just like you do, Eesha. Um, and everybody's gonna have ways that work best for them, and the more you do, the more you learn what works for you.
Got it. And now for our last question of the interview. Do you have any general words of advice that you would like to say for high schoolers who are also interested in pursuing a career in healthcare?
I would tell, I think of what I would tell myself, you know, when I was in high school, what would I want to know about back then? I would want to know I should believe in myself more, that that you're more capable than you think you are, and that um, um, I could do things I never expected I could do. I realized as somebody that wasn't focused on the sciences in high school, he ended up in college approaching it like you would speaking a foreign language. You learn the baby steps, just step by step as you go, and anybody do that. um, that's what I would tell myself, that you can do more than you think you can do, and don't limit yourself by pigeonholing what you think you can do into just one area, and to ask a lot of questions. One thing I didn't do that you're doing, Yisha, is that you're talking to people, you're asking people what they do, you're getting out there and doing that kind of work. And I didn't ask a lot of those questions. So you end up taking longer to figure things out, or you figure them out wrong and have to fix it in the end. So asking a lot of questions, being upfront, networking, talking, even just meeting people who do what you do and shadowing them. A lot of people just they would be more than willing to help, but I never felt comfortable asking. So I would say be comfortable asking. And if you're not comfortable, ask anyways, because that's how you learn what is available to you, and it helps you paint the picture of opportunities in this world that exist that you may never have imagined.
Yes, definitely. And speaking of shadowing, does your institution have any opportunities for high schoolers to volunteer or shadow or intern to learn more about pharmacy?
Um, where I work does not have opportunities for internship, but I would encourage any student that's interested in a health career just generally, that's interested in what it's like to study chemistry, which is what my undergraduate science degree is in. I would encourage any student who wants to know more about pharmacy, or what does that like, or how much work is it, or how do you become a pharmacist, or how do you get licensed, or what's pharmacy residency, or what other jobs are out there. I would tell them to message me, to find me online, to send me an email, to reach out, to ask, because I'm always happy, to help students in that way. But there's also,
Great.
there's also like the universities here that have a lot of resources for students as well, and students that are interested in becoming healthcare providers.
Got it. And that concludes our interview. Thank you so much for this.